Welcome to the deep dive. If you're looking to get smart, fast, you're in the right place.
Hmm.
Today, we're jumping into fileless malware. It's this type of cyber threat that, well, doesn't really use traditional files.
Yeah, it's pretty sneaky.
Mhm.
Think of it operating more in the shadows,
Yeah.
right inside your computer's memory.
Okay, so for this, we've looked at what? Some expert reports.
That's right. Pulled insights from places like Trellix, CrowdStrike, Sentinel, the big names, and also checked out discussions on Reddit, Rantivirus or NetSec, places where people are really in the trenches.
Gotcha. So the mission today is basically to get our heads around what this fileless stuff is, why it's so slippery.
Exactly. And what you need to know to stay safer without getting totally bogged down in jargon.
All right, let's dive in. What really sets fileless malware apart from, the usual viruses we hear about?
Okay, so traditional malware, it usually involves downloading an actual file, right?
Mm.
An executable, something your antivirus can scan and say, hey, this looks bad.
Right, it leaves a footprint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fileless malware, though, it tries to avoid that. It operates mainly in your computer's RAM, that's the short-term memory, or sometimes it hides data in the Windows registry.
Mm.
And the really clever or maybe insidious part is this technique called living off the land, LOL.
Living off the land, what's that?
It means it uses legitimate tools that are already on your computer. Things like PowerShell, which is a powerful scripting tool in Windows, or WMI, Windows Management Instrumentation.
Ah, so he's using my own systems tools against me.
Precisely. Imagine a burglar breaking in but using your crowbar from the garage instead of bringing their own. Antivirus has a much harder time spotting malicious use of legitimate tools compared to just finding a known bad file.
That makes sense. So it avoids the standard security checks.
Largely, yes. Now, it's worth saying, sometimes the initial infection, how it first gets in, might involve a file, like a dodgy email attachment.
Oh, yeah.
But the main damaging activity afterward, that happens without writing new malicious files to your disk. It's running in memory using those built-in tools.
So it's not strictly fileless all the time, but the core action is.
You got it. The name highlights the main evasion tactic.
Okay, so what kinds of fileless malware are out there? Are there different flavors?
Yeah, we can break it down a bit. First up, you've got script-based attacks.
Like using code scripts.
Exactly. PowerShell is a really common one. It's super powerful in Windows, used for all sorts of admin tasks, so attackers love it. They can use it to download other malware, see your passwords.
And how do those scripts get run? Phishing emails.
Often, yeah. Phishing emails with malicious attachments, like maybe a Word doc with a macro that runs a PowerShell script, or links that lead you somewhere nasty.
Right, those enable content warnings.
Also, JavaScript is big, especially for web-based attacks. You might visit a compromised website or click a malicious ad.
Advertising.
Yep. And that JavaScript can try to redirect you to a fake login page or use something like Windows Script Host to run code. Again, often without dropping a file.
Okay, scripts running in memory. What else?
Then there are registry-based attacks. The Windows registry is like this massive database where Windows keeps all its settings and configurations.
Sort of the system's DNA.
Kinda, yeah. Attackers found they can stash malicious code inside registry keys, and they can set it up so that code runs automatically when you boot up your computer.
Wow, so it hides in the settings and just waits.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Copter malware was famous for this, hiding its main payload, encrypted, right there in the registry. It makes it persistent, it survives a reboot. We see others like Bootloader, CACBot using the registry too.
Persist, like it keeps coming back. Nasty. Is there a third type?
Yep, memory-resident malware. This stuff aims to live entirely in RAM while it's active.
So nothing on the hard drive at all while it's running.
Ideally, from the attacker's perspective, yes. That makes it super challenging for traditional file scanning antivirus.
Yeah.
But like we just mentioned, pure memory-resident malware often needs another trick, like those registry keys.
To get loaded back into memory after a restart.
Exactly. Because RAM is volatile, it gets cleared when the power goes off. Some older examples were worms like Code Red and SQL Slammer, and more recently, things like the Duqua worm had memory-resident components.
Okay, 3 main types: scripts, registry tricks, and living purely in memory. So how do these things actually get onto our systems to begin with? What are the entry points?
Well, a lot of the usual suspects, unfortunately. Phishing is huge. You get an email, looks legit, but the attachment has a malicious macro, or the link goes to a site that tries to run exploit code.
Standard phishing tactics.
Yep. Then there are drive-by downloads. This is where just visiting a compromised website can be enough. If your browser or a plugin like, Flash back in the day or maybe Java has a vulnerability.
An unpatched hole.
Right. The website can exploit that hole to run malicious code directly in your computer's memory, sometimes without you clicking anything specific on the page.
Scary stuff.
Definitely. And related to that is just generally exploiting software vulnerabilities. Any unpatched software, your operating system, your applications, web server software, can be a target. Exploit kits are often used here to automate finding and exploiting these flaws. Actually, the first big recorded instance was way back in 2001. The code Redworm exploited a flaw in Microsoft's web server software.
Wow, so this isn't brand new then.
The concept isn't, but the techniques have gotten way more sophisticated. And finally, don't underestimate plain old social engineering.
Tricking people.
Yeah, getting you to copy and paste a seemingly harmless command into PowerShell, maybe from a fake help website. Or someone calling, pretending to be tech support, and asking you to run something.
Okay, so they get in through phishing, dodgy websites, software flaws, or just tricking us once they're in. What's the damage? What do they do?
Well, since they're stealthy, data theft is a big one. They can silently scrape up sensitive information, login credentials, financial details, personal files, and send it off without leaving obvious file traces. Info stealers like WinZ.32 work like this.
Yeah.
Just hoovering up data in the background?
They can also achieve full system compromise, gaining remote control, installing other types of malware maybe, moving laterally across a network to infect other machines.
Spreading the infection.
Right. And a key goal for many is establishing persistence, making sure they can survive reboots and maintain access. We mentioned the registry tricks.
Like the run keys.
Exactly, modifying registry keys like the run keys, or setting up scheduled tasks so the malware launches automatically.
Okay, this sounds pretty challenging to defend against if it's designed to evade normal scans. How do you spot this stuff? And stop it?
Yeah, traditional antivirus, the kind that just looks for file signatures, it struggles. It's not completely useless, but it misses a lot of this.
So what works?
You need more advanced approaches. Behavioral analysis is key, looking for unusual activity rather than just bad files. Like, why is Microsoft Word suddenly launching PowerShell commands? That's suspicious.
Looking at what programs are doing. Exactly. Memory scanning can also help, looking for malicious code directly in RAM. And more sophisticated endpoint detection and response, or EDR, solutions are designed for this kind of threat. They monitor process behavior, network connections, registry changes.
More comprehensive monitoring.
Right. And good logging is vital. Turning on detailed logging for tools like PowerShell and WMI, using tools like Sysmin, gives you visibility into what these legitimate tools are being used for.
So you can investigate later if something looks off.
Definitely. But prevention is always better. The basics are still crucial. Keep all your software updated, patch those vulnerabilities, manage vulnerabilities based on risk, use strong email security filters.
Don't make it easy for them.
Nope. Also, restricted administrator privileges don't run as admin unless you absolutely have to. Consider application whitelisting, only allowing known good programs to run. Disable scripting features you don't need. And of course, user awareness training about phishing and social engineering.
Makes sense. Defense in depth, basically. Have there been any, recent examples of fileless attacks making headlines?
Wait, constantly. Late last year, there was something called the Sluromyra loader. It used PowerShell scripts hidden in email attachments to deliver the Quasar RAT, that's a remote access Trojan. Totally fileless remote control.
Yeeks.
Around the same time, an Excel vulnerability was used. Opening a bad spreadsheet could trigger an HTA file that's an HTML application, which then ran obfuscated PowerShell to install another RAT, Remcos.
So they're chaining different techniques together.
Absolutely. And early this year, an advanced group, APT37, targeted South Korea using shellcode and PowerShell to load malware directly into memory. No disk footprint. Even seemingly benign things, like a software update for BOINC last summer, were compromised on a website to bundle fileless PowerShell malware.
So it's happening all the time, evolving. Is the security community, like those Reddit forums you mentioned, aware of all this? Are people talking about it?
Oh, definitely. If you browse subreddits like Rantivirus, LarnetSec, cybersecurity, even racking, you'll see constant discussion about these kinds of stealthy techniques, PowerShell abuse, memory injection. People are sharing indicators, asking for help analyzing suspicious behavior. There's a high level of awareness among practitioners.
Good to know people are sharing info. And if someone listening wants to dig deeper, where should they look?
Well, the cybersecurity vendors themselves are great resources. Companies like Trellix, CrowdStrike, Sentinel, Arctic Wolf, KeepNet Labs, they all have blogs, research papers, threat reports that go into detail.
So check out their websites.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, cybersecurity news sites like the Hacker News are good for staying current. And Microsoft's own security documentation have a lot on PowerShell security and mitigating these kinds of threats.
Great resources.
Yeah.
Okay, so to wrap up, the big takeaway seems to be that Fileless Malware is sneaky because it uses legitimate tools and hides in places like memory or the registry.
Exactly. It forces us to think beyond just scanning files and focus more on monitoring system behavior.
It requires a different, maybe more sophisticated security mindset.
I'd say so, yeah. Vigilance and multiple layers of defense.
All right, here's a final thought to leave you with. We're using cloud services more and more, and things like in-memory computing are getting bigger. How might that change the game for fileless threats? What new hiding places or attack methods might emerge? And what kind of defenses will we need then? Something to ponder.
Interesting question. Definitely something to keep an eye on.
That's our deep dive for today. Thanks for